Welcome to the GPS to Early Success podcast, where you'll discover career and life secrets from those who have successfully navigated the road before you. Buckle up and let's get to it. Welcome to another episode of the GPS show. Today I have with me Carrolee Moore, who is the founder and CEO of Moore Creatives, where she and her team help clients craft and leverage their unique brand stories online using digital marketing. With experience in project management, sales, and communications, this reformed Jill of all trades superpower lies in helping businesses lean into their unique value propositions to create unforgettable digital content marketing campaigns. Outside of work, she enjoys peanut butter with a side of anything, thinking about working out, and planning her next trip overseas. Carrolee, welcome.
Thank you. You like peanut butter.
I love peanut butter. I totally get it.
Semi-obsessed, and by semi, I mean very.
Yeah? Oh, here. So,
I put
what?
it on everything.
Couple things you like with peanut butter?
Apples. Waffles.
Okay.
Crackers.
Yeah.
I mean, literally anything. I will eat it on any fruit, any type of baked good. So muffins.
Okay.
I mean, yeah.
Cool.
Some of them get weird, but it's
Okay, no, I have a weird one for you that I want you to try.
Okay.
And it comes from my grandfather.
Okay.
And it's been in the family for a while, and it sounds really weird. But it is called peanut butter and onion salt toast.
Okay.
So, it sounds weird, but the sweet peanut butter with the salty
savory.
onion salt on the toast, and the onion, and it can't be regular salt, it's got to be onion salt. So,
well, I've had peanut butter on everything bagel.
Okay.
Which, everything
okay,
bagel is kind
savory.
of, yeah, so I can see that.
Cool, all right. Well, yeah,
I
I recommend it. Family recipe. Yeah.
I will try that, for sure.
Cool. All right, so we're here to share your career story with our young audience, so they can follow in your footsteps and get to where you are, and and I'll interject some of my stories here and there, but
yeah.
I try not to interject too much because I can't tell my story every time because they get really bored.
Right.
All right, so start maybe
Sure.
with your first job you ever had.
So I feel like everyone that I've met has started their first job at McDonald's, but maybe that's just me.
Arby's roast beef.
See?
fast food. Yeah.
Right. So I started at McDonald's, which was probably a mile and a half away from my house. I say that because we had a terrible bus system near my house, so I had to often walk.
Where was it? What city?
I'm from Massachusetts, so this was a suburb of Boston.
Okay.
So walking that mile and a half in the snow at times to get to work, at 16 was kind of like it's training for a lot of different things. But yeah, I started at McDonald's. I stayed there for a year and a half until I graduated from high school, actually, and I saw so much and I learned so much from that time that I still think about now. I don't want to tell you how long ago that was.
Of course, yeah.
In years. But
top secret.
Right. But customer service, understanding and dealing with different types of personalities, really understanding yourself in high pressure situations and how to, deal with something that is difficult. And all these kind of various things kind of coming at you, pressures that you have to still be smiling and keep all of that kind of in the background and make sure that the customer is not seeing that it's complete chaos, in the back end, everyone's shuffling around or whatever, and then you come out hey, here's your burger. So
that's very difficult.
It is, and I've seen people, and I'm not exaggerating, I think it was 4 hours. The person came, put their hat on, got their uniform, got training, and then just walked out and never came back. Right? So I've seen everything in there. I've seen a ton of different people and personalities either thrive in that setting or is just and obviously, fast food as far as just being an associate is not the ideal or end all, career goals for most people.
It's a great first job.
Right. So for me, it was a good training, and I think most of the jobs that I had around that time, the same thing. I went to college a semester late because of decisions that I made to kind of, slack off and only apply to like 1.5 schools.
But how do you apply to half a school?
You do the entire application and then not submit it.
And not send it in. Okay, got it.
I was a special kid. So I went to a math and science exam school. And exam school in Massachusetts it's a school that you have to test into. So it's basically the smartest kids from all of the public schools going into these kind of three. We call them schools for nerds. It's fine.
Yeah. It's the nerds that run the world now. So
very true. I didn't. You don't know that in the 9th grade, but then you realize, okay, it's okay to be, smart or just very curious. AKA ask a lot of questions that annoy adults that are around you.
Actually, that's one story I haven't shared yet. Is that I was in a similar position where I went to a private school for 3rd through 7th grade, and then I begged my mom to put me in public school for 8th grade because all my neighborhood buddies went there, and I had to play dumb when I got there because it was because it was not cool to be smart. It was very nerdy, and nerd it was a bad word back then, and so like the first couple days, the teacher would ask a question, I'd shoot my hand up, and I know the answer, and then they gave me the dirty looks, and it's like, okay, I guess I won't do that anymore.
In that school, it was like everyone's hand, and you had to be it was the Nerd Olympics. I looking back at it, the best thing that could have happened to me at the time. You go from being like, I was taken out of class in middle school to be taught, like, I think it was 3 of us, like higher level math, so I was
you were like the top of the top.
Right. And then you go into a school where everyone else was that person. So now it's like, okay, you're an average student in a really good school. And that really, there were things that kind of got to me there too. But by the end of it, my SAT scores were amazing because I obviously could do the work. I just didn't.
Right.
And so the colleges were like, ma'am, you can come, but we need to know that you can do the work. So for the first semester, we're putting you on probation already. Yeah. And we're not giving you any money. And my parents were like, so the money part, kind of need that. So for a semester, I worked at Sears, and that was also a wicked wake-up call for me. Like, that's probably not where I want to be in 20 years because I saw so many people who'd been working there 15, 20, 30 years. In Sears, some of them in the same location,
same department, same job.
I'm just like, I go back.
Same area of tile. Yeah.
Oh my goodness! The woman that, and this is not to knock anyone who's been in the job for as long as they have. Like, that's your career path. I just knew it wasn't for me. She's been in the jewelry department from before I went there, like probably 15, 20 years, and I go back now, and she's still there. Right,
she must love it. Maybe she has a passion for it.
Customer service is her thing. She's fantastic, right? But I knew at 18, 19, I can't do this for like a long period of time, especially when I had classmates running into classmates as I'm working in the middle of the day. They're like, "Hey, what are you doing here?" And have to explain or lie, to be honest. So I learned, okay, we don't want to do that. So literally, I got into 4 different colleges when I reapplied for the next semester. Went to the cheapest one, the one that I knew I could afford, like out of my own pocket and work and do that. And so when I got to college, the first thing I did was look for jobs. So I got a job working in retail because that's what I knew. But I also went to the tutor center. First semester, no grades. Hey, can I get a job? He's like, you don't have any grades. We don't know if you can actually do it. He's like, come back when you do. I was like, okay. Yeah. I went, and my first semester, I think I had like a 3.98. Yeah. And I was like, here you go. Yeah. He's like, okay, now you can come and work. And I worked there for 3.5 years. Like the rest of my time in college, I had 2 jobs.
Yeah. Probably paid better too, right?
It was the highest paying, which is the reason I wanted it. It was the highest paying job on campus at the time, which is all of $9. $9 an hour. So yeah,
and we won't say what year that was.
Right, exactly. It was good money at the time. So yeah, I think those 3 experiences, as far as like first jobs go, really taught me a heck of a lot to do with people. I was tutoring as a freshman, seniors, and realizing, but I'm like, okay, there's a writing center. right? And so I'm learning, hey, age doesn't matter, where you're from, because I was from kind of like what you consider the inner city, right? Even though the school was this school for all these brainiacs, it was in a really rough part of, so I was protected while in school, and then when I went out, it's like, oh, there's someone on the street just ODing on okay, and then get on the bus and go back to my neighborhood. So I saw all that, but coming in and meeting kids from affluent neighborhoods that just, they couldn't write a proper sentence if their life depended on it.
Right.
It really gave me
no motivation, right? They already had everything they needed. Yeah.
It gave me perspective again, on life, and I carried that to where it's like, now you're the only person that could ever keep you from rooms. No one can keep you from a room that you belong in. And when you get there, you belong in every room that you're in, right? Because for me, not being able to go that first semester played with me a little bit, which is why I overdid it a bit, 3.9. And I realized just that's played a part in my entire career after that. There's a tiny, aka large chip on my shoulder that is still there. That motivates me, I think.
Yeah, I'm real into audiobooks, and I listen to Tyler Perry's audiobook. And he said almost the exact same thing, where he was invited to like an award show, and he's sitting with a lot of really famous people. I don't remember which ones they were, but he just felt like he didn't belong. And one of them just tapped him on the shoulder and said, Tyler, you belong. You're awesome, man. Like, all right, cool.
I'm here.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that's the biggest thing for most of us, which is the irony is whatever room you're in, I'm sure there are multiple people. It's like, holy crap, how did I get here? What do I say to like not sound stupid? Like there's so many people having those same thoughts, and if you realize that and just calm down and just be yourself.
Yeah, it's called Imposter Syndrome.
Yeah.
And I had it real bad for a long time. I spent 20 years in corporate marketing at some very large companies. And especially for the first 5+ years, I was like, I didn't know anybody that had made it this far into this kind of job, and it's like, I hope nobody finds out that
I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
I'm just faking this. It was scary.
Talk about the first year of business. In the middle of that. But yeah, that would be, I guess, my stories for first jobs.
All right, and then what happened after that first job? First two jobs.
I graduated in the middle of the last recession. But I graduated, as you can probably imagine, at the top of my class. I was in everybody's honor society, head of this committee, this group, doing all these different leadership things. All of my professors, you're gonna do fantastic. You're gonna, the world's, your oyster. And I was so excited, and I had no doubt in my mind that I was going to just hit and
kill it. Yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah.
And I always, and I still to this day, music is literally, I live, breathe, and eat it. I am a walking jukebox, and my friends make fun of me, but I love music, right?
Yeah, same here.
And so I really wanted to do PR because I'm a writer. I graduated with a communications degree, my first degree, and that's what I thought I was going to be doing. So I was looking for internships and going through the internship interview process at Sony Music in New York. So going to 42nd Street and seeing all that and going all the way up to it's like, oh my God, I can, this could be my thing. Interviewing with MTV at the time, going super far into that process. And then my grandmother passed away, and I do believe there was I felt an obligation to somehow be with my family, and that my dreams were all, here, and it brought me here. Meaning my dreams were, I'm going to travel the world, I'm going to do all these different things. And then my grandmother passing away just kind of reminded me, hey, your family, and I think I over-corrected a bit, and I stayed in Massachusetts, in Boston. And so after college, I got smacked with reality pretty bad. There weren't any jobs, and the ones that they did have, the folks who were getting laid off that had been working for years,
they were all looking for jobs.
They were looking for jobs, and so it was tough because I had 3 internships under my belt. Again, overachiever. That's just, but nothing. And I was trying to get connected to people, and it was just I think my expectations were just sky high, and the reality was just so different that I got nervous and scared, and I just started temping and doing.
Gotta bring some money in, right?
I wanted to help my parents. So I started and really didn't stop. I was temping for a while. I eventually got a long-term temp job that I stayed in for entirely too long. I hated the job, but I loved the people. To this day, we still talk. It's been a while. But we're still friends. Facebook, like watching their families grow and the whole thing has been fantastic. But that was really the beginning, I think, of me playing it small. Because I almost like I was shooting up, got smacked down to the ground. I was like, well, maybe shooting up isn't for me. Maybe shooting up is too dangerous. Maybe shooting up is not worth the risk of losing the little that I've gotten, which is like very little, but hey, I have something, right? And that's how, like, mindset wise. So I went back to grad school thinking, okay, when you get my degree, I went and I got a master's at African American Studies from Boston University. Super tough program. And after it was done, I wanted nothing to do with academia. Because before it was like, I'm going to get my master's, and right after that, I'm going to go and get my PhD, and we're going to go into like teaching, and we're going to do all this good stuff. It took me a few months in the program and to see all of the drama and the politics behind the curtain that you don't see in undergrad. I'm like, I want no parts of this. I mean, I love teaching. I would never want to go through the process to become tenure or whatever, which is the only way you actually make decent money in academia. So after that being done, I really was lost again. I didn't know what I wanted to do. All my eggs were in this basket of like, oh, I'm going to be in academia. And it wasn't like I was doing something that I loved to do before, so I couldn't go back to healthcare, which is what I was doing for 2 years. So I temped again. Going back into the playing it small. And I was taking jobs that I was wholly overqualified for, like so much. But no one's going to tell you, hey, you're overqualified for this. If you're accepting it and you're accepting the pay, you're like, no.
Yeah, they want you. Yeah.
Right, but come be
provide value for me. Yeah.
Exactly. So I mean, I literally, for almost, I'd say 8 years, 7, completely lost. No idea who I was, what I wanted to do. And I wasn't dreaming anymore. The dreams that I had in college of being, flying around, going to California and being like rubbing elbows and shoulders with, famous folk, whatever the case may be, writing for these big publications. I mean, I was the nerd that I made my own magazines from cutouts of other magazines, and I wrote articles and taped it together and made a physical magazine. The volumes.
What age was that?
12, 13, I mean, it was for years. So it was probably around 11, 12 to 16, 17.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Yeah, and I roped in my friends to write stuff for it, and we publish it. Publish it in quotes. And
before self-publishing was a thing.
Right. Exactly. Honestly, that's funny. I never thought about that. Thought about it that way. But yes. And I stopped dreaming.
Yeah.
It just completely, all I could see was right in front of my nose. And I mean, the amount of failures that racked up by that point, especially as society would see it. Sure, I had a master's degree. Great. Awesome. Not using it. Sure, I went to these top schools. None of it mattered to me because I wasn't doing what I really wanted to do, because I didn't know what the heck that was. And honestly, I think we're going to go into the whole COVID situation.
Talk about it now if you want.
Okay. I was going to say, I fell into nonprofit fundraising. I fell into sales and truly I fell into marketing. I was doing graphic design on the side this entire time that I was miserable in all these jobs. I needed an outlet, right? So I started creating logos first for myself and just like playing around with the Adobe suite. And then people started asking me to like create flyers for their birthdays, for club, you know, when that was a thing. People would like celebrate in like public, whatever. I was doing that, and then it just kind of grew into small businesses asking me to help with certain things. And so, of course, as I'm working, even though I'm an assistant, you know, administrative assistant, they realize I can do graphic design work. They're throwing some of that stuff in there too. And so as I started growing into my career, so going from an associate, coordinator, manager, director, I was also getting more of like the marketing stuff added to my roles, like officially, not I'm doing it on the side, which I still was. So I started realizing that I enjoyed what was like pretty much 10 or 15% of my job a lot more than the rest of it.
Right.
I really could care less about going and asking like really, really wealthy men for $10,000 checks for their memberships. Like, I didn't want to sell that. If I was going to sell something, I wanted to sell something, I don't know, something that didn't make me feel, I don't know. I just didn't enjoy the job.
Yeah.
For the most part. I really loved the sales enablement piece. And so I prayed about it. I was going to leave the job. There were 3 of us working in the organization, and then the 2 people quit within 2 to 3 weeks of each other.
Wow.
So I was the sole employee in a job that I hated and wanted to leave. And I had a decision as to whether I wanted to completely abandon the organization and possibly they would have to shutter their doors, or
Make you feel extra guilty for leaving, being the last one, yeah.
Or stick it out, wait till a new leader comes in and see, you know, what happens. Maybe this whole thing, maybe I can change my role to the point where I'm focusing more on what I really love doing, and they can add other people. Whatever. I had all these, you know, things in my head. It's not what happened. And we'll leave it at that. Eventually, I got laid off. Probably within a month or so of the new person coming in. I'm not going to go into details of that situation, but I felt a relief. And within 2 weeks of that, the pandemic happened. So here I was, unemployed, global pandemic.
The world's been told to stop working. Stop going to work.
And I'm like, okay, there are 2 ways to look at this. You've been praying about this. I fasted for 21 days right before I got, laid off. And it's like, well, God clearly answered. It's not the answer I thought he was going to give.
Wait, so that's why we got the pandemic.
Oh, yeah. It was all because of me.
Yeah.
I was like, God, give me something. He's like, here you go, plus everyone else.
Yeah, this is what you need to keep growing. Everybody else have to deal with it. Yeah.
Hey, I mean, I'm sorry. But yeah, the pandemic happened, and I've said it before, and it sounds really hyperbolic, but the pandemic really saved my life. I think I felt overwhelmingly sad and not fulfilled, and feeling like I was living, because I was living someone else's life. I had so many things that I was doing. I was busy, but I was literally living someone else's. I wanted to do none of it. Mm-hmm. Most of the things that I was doing, I was like, if I could leave tomorrow and not have to deal with this, I would. And I started thinking about what that would be like, if you can imagine what those thoughts are. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't good. So that, my prayer to God and that fast was my last ditch effort of like, all right, God, you say you're good, right? I know I felt that. I've said it. I've sung it in songs. Mm-hmm. Now is the time. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then he pulled my job. I was like, okay, well, not what I thought was gonna happen, but all right. So the pandemic happened, and no one could go anywhere, and I was forced to just be with myself. And as much as it was difficult in the beginning, and there was a lot of tears and all of that, I think what came to me was like, hey, you don't have to do this. You don't have to live someone else's life. You can be who you are. It's a decision. Yeah, you're probably going to hurt somebody's feelings, or people are not going to understand. You might even lose some of the people, but you have to be true to whoever this is you were becoming. Because at the time, again, I really didn't know who I was. And so for the 9 months, that's what I did. I found me, and I've lost all of my closest friends. I've moved across the country from Massachusetts to Texas. I've started a business in the middle of a pandemic. I'm insane.
Yeah.
But
yeah, here you are, and I saw something special in you, which is why you invited you to my show. You're guest number 3 here in the studio, like I said. So there's definitely something amazing about you, which is why you're here.
Well, thank you. I think that, and one of the things I wanted to talk about is how failure is actually a good thing. I heard someone say recently that failure is how you know that you're not done yet. Right? And
story's not over.
Right. And I'll add to that failure basically tells you, okay, that thing that you were trying to do that way is not going to work. Now try something else. Right? It doesn't mean, all right, I failed, I'm done, oh my gosh, I'm going to stop. And to me, for the longest time, you heard a part of my story. I'm a perfectionist. I'm an overachiever. I am, if it's not perfect, if it's not exactly the way that I think it should be, then I can't. And that has stopped me from doing so many things in my life. And if I can go back and tell my younger self, especially after graduating from college and things weren't the way that I thought they would be, hey, it doesn't mean because it's not exactly what you thought it would be that you need to go and be like on this completely other, and I don't regret anything that happened. It all did what it's supposed to do to have me be who I am today. I don't regret it. I love who I am today. But if I can go back, I wouldn't have swung so much in the opposite direction. And recognizing that, if you don't know who you are, the world will tell you, and it's not going to be pretty. And it's not going to be anywhere close to what God has actually made you to be and called you to be. So if I can say anything about my failures is that they were partially because I believed the lies that failure was a bad thing.
Yeah, me too.
And because I believed those lies, I was so scared of failing that I just never moved. And that is the biggest failure you could ever have. And no one warns you about that.
Yep.
There's so many people that die thinking, what if? There's no one who has failed 1,000,000 times and is going, and they're done with their lives and man, I should have relaxed and not failed. So no. if I want to be one of those people, it's not going to be the person who's I should have lived my life. I should have gone after this thing. I should have moved there. I should have done this thing. I should have really just gone 110% into this area.
Yeah, not let fear stop them.
No, it is one of the things that I'm still to this day working through, because like I said, a lot of our things that we deal with in childhood is gonna, I don't want to use this word, but it's plaguing me. Right? It's been with you throughout your whole life, and you now have to unlearn some of those things. And also recognize that some of the people who knew you when you were in this space of, being so scared to move, they're used to that, right? When you start to really open and fly, literally fly and fall, and you're still kind of, chilling, and you're what's wrong with you? You're insane, and not understand it. And it's okay. I think with another message, it's okay if people just don't get it.
Yeah. Oh, and oftentimes the people who love you will be the ones that try to stop you because they don't want to see you get hurt.
Exactly.
So they don't want you to take a risk.
Exactly.
Because what if it doesn't work? And but risks are where the dreams are.
I couldn't agree more. And I love my family for loving me, right? But that love was also, hey, you don't want to move out of this box, because if you move out of this box, you know something, you just don't know what's going to go out there. And so you stay in the box because everybody's been, you know, and everyone in my immediate family have been in their careers, that specific career, for over 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years. That's who they are. I was
that was very popular 50 years ago to do that, right?
My sister, who was only a few years older than me, she's been a social worker since she graduated from college. She went and got her MSW and started her own practice, but on the side of doing a traditional job. And even that was scary for her to do. And then she started teaching at a but it's all within social work. And it's been that way for like almost 20 years at this point. She stayed in that one. And so
good for her to start the side gigs. I mean, because at least she's doing something creative with her own passions.
Right. And now she's thinking about, okay, I know that I want to leave this job, her full-time job, and do something. I just don't know what this something is yet. Whereas I was kind of like, well, I'm here. Well, I don't like this. I'm here. And I did that for 10 years. As much as I felt like I was lost, what was really happening was God was kind of like pushing all this stuff out, right? I know now, because of that experience, I don't stay anywhere. And it's not even a job anymore. Any situation, any group, anywhere where I don't feel at peace with myself and with the people around me. If it's not serving me, I want no parts of it.
Well, that's your sign. That's your nudge.
But so many
Move
people,
on,
so many people, because of fear, because of, well, if I leave this, if I lose this, what's going to happen to me? What's going to, and I've lived like that for so long. It eats at you. And I wish that I could have that childhood wonder back. And in fact, I'm intentionally now building that back into my weekly schedule of just taking time to explore, be a creative again. I'm a business owner, right? But I love writing. And I really enjoy storytelling and figuring things out that way. And so I want to go deeper into that for my own business. And I think that's going to, pour into what I can do for others. So I'm excited to bring that back into life, because last year was insane in the best ways for me. I know a lot of people lost, folks that they loved. I know that there have been devastation upon devastation for a lot of people in the world. But honestly, like, COVID saved my life. And I wouldn't, if I could change what happened, even with all the devastation, because I've talked to so many people that are in the same boat, I wouldn't change it.
That's good. It's good to hear when good things come out of things like that. You mentioned perfectionism, and I would call myself a reformed perfectionist. I read the book by Carol Dweck, I think it's called Mindset, where she talks about growth mindset, fixed mindset, and most of the book focuses on low performers with a fixed mindset, thinking, well, I can never achieve this because I'm fixed at this level. But there's a small part of the book where she talks about high performers with a fixed mindset, and that was me. Where, I was not the highest. There were always people achieving more than me, but again, kind of like you, I got good grades in school and up through high school, most of high school, and then I started kind of leveling off in college. But anyway, I was so used to being praised for my high performance in elementary, middle school, especially high school. I just started getting a little distracted, but I was so accustomed to the praise that my fixed mindset subconsciously would not allow me to try anything I might fail at.
That's
And I didn't realize until I read this book. It's like, you know what? That's exactly right. I mean, I would only go after it if I thought I could do well.
Yeah.
But there are many things I would never go after because I'm going to lose my smart guy status if I fail at some hard stuff. So I just never tried the hard stuff. And I really hope that our listeners are paying attention and taking notes to what we're both saying here because there's a lot of people out there that are performing at a good level. But they're afraid to reach for anything higher subconsciously because they don't want to fail.
And I think that's such a powerful thing to remember too. I don't remember who said this quote, but it's something I've heard 15 million times in the last 2 months, and I'm like, there's a reason. I'm going to write it down.
Yeah.
It says, if you believe that you can't, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
If you believe that you can, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
That is it.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you believe,
Mm-hmm.
you can do. And if you genuinely are going into something believing that you can't, you're probably right too. Because your actions are going to match up to your thoughts.
Absolutely.
Like, without a doubt, And so...
It will go back to being a kid. The very first time you get onto a bicycle, and your belief is, I'm going to fall. And unless you have a parent or a mentor or somebody there that says, I know you're scared, I know you think you can't do this, but you can. Let's just try it. But again, if you were there by yourself, 5 years old, trying to figure this out, you probably would never ride a bike because your belief is that I'm going to die, and this is not going to turn out well.
No, it's true. It's very true. It's I had a fear. It's still there. Of roller coasters and heights and all these different things. And I had a friend at the time who was like, you know what? I'm going to take you out for a day. He brought me to the sand dune that was filled with water. And they had zip lines. They had a huge, huge cliff that people were jumping off into the water. I mean, all kinds of activities all over the place. You can do rock climbing and you fall in the water. And I was like, why are we here? And little by little, the things that I thought I could never do, it took some coaxing, some talking. Hey, you can do this. I'm coming with you. They're talking me through the whole thing. First thing was the zip line. Literally screamed the entire way down. Right? You drop in the water, and it's like, all right, that's over. Oh my gosh. The next thing that we did was rock climbing, which was terrifying because it's fun while you're going up, and then you turn around and you're like, crap.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
How are you going to get down? And the last thing that we did, and the thing that really changed my entire life, and I'm not kidding you, because it was the thing that made me realize how much I was living in fear, was the cliff dive. Mind you, he put a life vest over me because swimming is not it's not a strong suit of mine.
That would not have helped me. I've never been a cliff diver, and life jacket or not, I'm not doing it.
So what's funny about cliff diving, and there is a story in this, and if I was to preach this, I probably could. It was scarier to climb up to the cliff than jumping off.
Really?
Because as I was going up, it's like, I'm not doing it. Wow. I can't. And the whole time, you're freaking out. By the time you're up there, you can probably get talked into doing it because you're already up there. Getting up there, the mindset that you have to change to take those steps is a bigger leap than hopping off.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I had a smaller version of that story when I was a kid. I was at the public pool, high dive, with my buddies. I go up to the top, and I was okay climbing the ladder.
Really?
But once it came to putting my feet on the diving board and standing up, where I don't have anything. Okay, I guess there were rails to hold on to for maybe half the board.
Yeah, but then you'd have to.
But then the other 6 feet or whatever the board, you have no rails.
Yeah.
And I couldn't step out to the point where the rails weren't there. And I mean, I just freaked out, and I had to do the walk of shame, back down the board and down the ladder.
Yeah.
And I don't remember how old, maybe 10 years old, something like that. And it was so humiliating, so painful. And it wasn't till many years later that I attempted it again, only because, you know what? I don't want that to be my last memory of a high dive, is that humiliation, so I'm going to go do this. And I did. One time, yeah. And
I told him.
Yeah, and I jumped off feet. I jumped off feet first. There was no fancy flips or dives or anything. No, I just jumped off, held my nose, and okay, check it off the list. I'm done. I did a high dive.
Pretty much, it's like, listen, it was not, oh my God, I'm so brave. Let me go and I'm doing this. We were up there for at least 15, 20 minutes.
Oh, contemplating the jump.
He was trying to talk me into it, and then the lifeguard that was there came over, and they're trying. So everyone is just like, "You can do this. You're already up here." Like, just the whole thing of like, "You're already here."
Well, they tried that trick on me too, but it didn't work. I still walk down the ladder.
I'm more so like, well, if everybody else, because I saw people doing it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big thing for me. Right? No, the thing for me is, and I think for a lot of people, once you're seeing what you want to do or what you have an idea of what's possible, if you see it, if you see someone doing it, you're more apt to be like, you know what, I'm going to get my stuff together, I'm going to do it too. Versus if you've never seen, someone doing the thing that you are thinking that you want to do, there is this cloud of like, what does it even take? But then I saw people jumping in and belly flopping.
Ooh.
And like doing whatever, and my friend at the time was a retired Marine. He's like, don't do that. He's like, close your mouth, put your finger over your nose, and put your toes as straight as possible, so that you're hitting the water as like a straight, whatever.
Go right through it and not smack it.
Exactly. And people are flailing their arms. You can break a limb that way, and it was a pretty high cliff.
How high was the cliff?
I don't know.
If they call it a cliff, it's pretty high. So
it was scary to get up.
Yeah.
And it was probably as high, or if not higher than where we were to do the zip line. So it's up there, and jumping down that.
Yeah. It doesn't matter, 50 feet, 100 feet. I'm not doing it.
I did it, and after that, I hadn't gone on a roller coaster, since like Disney World, because I was just like, no, I'm not. I don't want to. Heights is an issue. After that, I was going on roller coasters that like go backwards in the loops. I mean, I went crazy, just wanting to relive that moment of freedom. Of like, man, the fear that I had didn't stop me from doing this thing. And so now, every so often when something scares me, which is on a daily basis as an entrepreneur, I think of that moment of jumping off that cliff and doing everything that he told me to do and surviving. Yeah. And being around like, okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah, so if this is what facing your fears feels like, I'm going to keep doing it, right?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I wanted it to be more of the feeling that I felt when I jumped off and less of that feeling of when I'm walking up. Because I genuinely could have probably peed my pants by the time I got up there. It was so high. And like, he was just like normal, regular. Because again, he's a Marine. They had to do that to train to get into what he was doing. Like, he did. So I was like, yeah, I will never do that again. Yeah. But it definitely changed my life.
See, I'm the same thing. I'm the same way about roller coasters. I love roller coasters. Okay. At first I didn't. I mean, my friends had to peer pressure me into it, but I ended up liking it once they did. Yeah. I didn't like the high dive even when I eventually did it. But I mean, by that time I realized, if you don't face your fears, they become your limits.
That's a good one. That's a quotable.
Yeah. Oh, it is a quote. I saw it somewhere. Yeah. Don't give me credit. I'm such a fan of quotes, and I read so many quotes. I can almost never remember who they're by, and I won't even get the words right. But I can give you the gist of it.
I can't express how much that is the same. I love reading autobiographies or biographies of really amazing people that I respect, admire, etc. And I'm always looking for those nuggets within those things where you're just reading about their lives and reading about things that they've gone through. And for me, within the 10 years of what it took me almost full circle to now be back into doing marketing, graphic design, the thing that I kind of put to the side out of fear, right? Now I'm jumping all the way in. I'm remembering these biographies of people doing the same thing, going through the journey of finding themselves. And the hardest part for me was to not, one, be ashamed of that journey, because for a long time I didn't even say how long I was temping for, because
same here.
That was a source of shame for me. It's like, how you graduate from college, top of your class, and you were temping.
You
didn't have benefits.
Well, I mean,
no 401k, no nothing. What? So.
Yeah. No, I mean, I had the same shame story. And anybody, who wants to learn more about shame, just goes find Brene Brown's TED Talk and her books and podcasts and things now. I learned a lot from her. But yeah, so 10 years ago, I had just a complete meltdown at my corporate job. Couldn't handle the stress anymore, the politics, any of that, and I walked out. And it was the stupidest thing, to not just figure out some other way. But and yeah, I didn't want to tell that story for a long time. It took a while for it to settle inside of me to the point where I could tell it,
and not have any. Like, I don't care if you were like, oh my God, you're tempted. I don't have any.
Yeah, it's okay.
There's nothing attached to those experiences anymore other than gratitude.
Right, but isn't it so freeing? Because, here we are now sharing our stories with the world.
Yeah.
Hopefully thousands of people will benefit from this. They're going through now what we went through then, and they go, oh, there's light at the end of the tunnel. Awesome.
No, there is.
But yeah, I was so ashamed the first few years after I quit that job. I thought, I'm never going to tell this story. I hope nobody ever hears. Nobody ever finds out.
No, how many goals I've had? Like, oh my goodness. I've been as low as not being able to afford groceries and not telling anyone, right? And God having it so I was in a relationship at the time, and he just went out, didn't tell me. I never even told him I didn't have groceries. He could just look at my fridge. He went out and bought like probably $20 worth of groceries, all my favorite things and vegetables and fruits, and just came to my house. Awesome. Like Santa Claus. And I wouldn't, out of all the gratitude that I had for that person, I don't share those stories, right? Because people will see you, even in entrepreneurship, they see you and it's like, oh, you're moving and shaking, you're going all over the place and whatever. It's like, I have stories, but I'm hopeful for the day where most of them won't be attached to a sense of either shame or my own judgment for why those things happened, or looking back like, how could you like, why, like how you said, like, that stupid decision. It's like, well, that was a decision you made, right? The best you could in that moment, because those are the tools that you had.
I was broken.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I was broken and didn't have any idea what else to do.
Right. So like, there's so much grace that I've been able to give myself.
Yeah. And I'm so excited about sharing these stories through this podcast, because everybody puts their best foot forward on social media.
For sure.
They only show the happy pictures and vacation. They only show you the awards they won or at work, whatever. But they don't talk about this stuff, and it makes everybody else feel like, oh my gosh,
my life is.
I have issues, and apparently they don't, because they never say they have issues. And it's like, well, no, it's real. Everybody has issues, and it's and every entrepreneurial story I've ever heard or autobiography I've ever read, it was a rough road. I mean, 95% of new businesses fail, so the chance of your very first one you try being a success is very slim. So yeah, you're going to have a bunch of failures on the way to your entrepreneurial success.
Exactly. Yeah, and I will say, to me, like, that was the reason I didn't want to do jumping into entrepreneurship. I didn't jump. I was pushed Like,
yeah, there were no jobs due to the pandemic. Yeah,
I was already getting some clients, but because of the pandemic and people losing their jobs, people are starting their own businesses. What do they need? A logo, a website, all the things. And I was like the resident whatever, so I was getting all these referrals. I'm like, man, like, maybe instead of me trying to figure out this whole job situation here, because I was still applying to, at the time, like tech companies, maybe I can figure out something here now. So I built a website for See More Creatives because there was none. I was just doing work referral wise.
Yeah, it's a beautiful
for
site.
years. Thank you. It was not the site that was first built.
Oh yeah,
the site from
iterations. Yeah,
I mean, a million.
Yeah.
The site from when I built it, when I first got laid off, I was doing it as like a hobby site. Like, this is what I do. It wasn't a business. I didn't think of it as a business. I had no intentions of making it a full-fledged business. But eventually, I think what I needed to realize is that I can do whatever I put my mind to. And it had been there. And I was seeing more of it, and I was able to see it because, again, God took everything else away, all the distractions. And all I saw now were more and more customers. And I'm like, I'm not doing anything. I'm not out here promoting. I wasn't networking. This is Massachusetts. It's a pandemic. I can't go anywhere. But yet, I'm getting this influx of work.
Just a sign you're doing the right thing.
Right. I'm where I'm supposed to be. Exactly. So I just took that. And when God told me Dallas, and that's a whole other story, but when God told me Dallas, I sold all of my stuff. My bed included. And I moved in with a friend at the time and slept on her very uncomfortable cot in an empty room with a desk enough that I could do design work and run my business. That's what I was doing for months before I moved to Dallas, shipped my car. A friend actually paid to ship my car. Another friend paid for my flight down here. And I was in Dallas with no furniture.
Right.
And like a suitcase of clothes. That's my entrepreneurial story, beginning of what this is. And to see just in 8 months what it's become, I am excited for the failures that are they're coming, right? But someone also said, we want to fail as much as possible, as soon as possible, so that we can get to the good stuff. Because
fail forward. Don't stop where you are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the whole idea of like you keep failing, trying. If you're able to do that to where you're not, this like motion backwards every time you fail, you have to fall back and to try to come back again. It's harder to come back. You know what I mean? So if you're here, okay, I failed, but I'm standing up and I'm moving forward, and you keep doing that every time, eventually, that success is going to feel different, and you're going to get there faster than if you were to every time be moving backwards, right? So it's been a ride. And I'll leave that. I'm not ready to share maybe another 10 years to share all the craziness that has happened over the last 8 months. But I will say, blessings are amazing. And I will share this because it happened today. And my partner asked me, so are you going to share this story in video form on Instagram or Facebook or whatever? And I was like, yeah, maybe I'll do it. But now that I'm here, I'm going to share it. So I was trying to figure out, okay, bills, rent, it's the first of the month, all these different things. I was the special kind that had 4 of my largest bills being taken out at the exact same time on the first. Not the smartest thing to do. I just didn't realize it was happening until it happened, and I was like, crap.
all my money just disappeared. Where did it go?
And the bigger part of it is when you're running a business, you are both, as a solo entrepreneur, you're both the business owner and an employee. You, as an employee, as a business owner, you wouldn't allow your employee just to be dipping into your business funds. They're not going to have that kind of access. So I can't pay myself every time I need money. It's illegal. So it's been interesting trying to as a person maneuver, and then as a business owner, and having those two things be whatever. So, but I was interested. I'm like, all right, God. Well, kind of this very similar situation as earlier this year. I was like, or earlier last year. I'm like, what do you want me to do? Because this is a lot. This is a lot. This is more than I can handle. I don't know what I'm going to do. But I wasn't freaking out. There wasn't curling up in a ball and bawling my eyes out. I was just, silent prayers to God. Help me figure this out, because I'm not a magician. I can't magically just come up with hundreds of dollars. But he can, because this morning I go and check the mail, and there was a check there for gap insurance that I paid for a car from 5 years ago.
Wow.
That they never paid me for.
That's
they
awesome.
sent a check, fairly large check, in the mail.
At just the right time.
At the day.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that stuff has happened so many times, and when that stuff happens in your life, it means that you're on the right track.
Mm-hmm.
It means that you're exactly where you need to be, and God is going to continue to provide over and over and over. If you're in His will, if you're doing what you're called to do, you're meant to do, it's going to be difficult, no doubt, and you're going to have those moments of like, what is this? Like, this feels like it's not supposed to be this hard, and it's like, well, He's going to provide. And it sounds super cliche, but I can't tell you how many times, whether it's that moment where I had no food and I was like, well, I can't really tell my family because they're going to be like, well, you're only working this, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. The shame, right?
Yeah.
So
if you would have stuck with that 30-year job, this wouldn't have happened.
All of that, you know what I mean? And here he is delivering through someone else at the time, groceries for me for a month.
Yeah.
The same situation. And I've had this so many times in my life. So as much as we talked about failure today, I feel like we also have to remember the many, 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 many times where even in the midst of things that feel like failure, that God kind of showed up and said, hey, I'm here. Yeah. Keep going.
Yeah. I wonder if there's something magic about that 200 number, because during the bottom of my valley days, a friend of mine, actually he was my counselor, kind of like a therapist, but I mean a Christian counselor, and he's also a pastor, and so he knew I was going through a rough time, but yeah, right when I needed it most, I go in to meet with him, and he hands me an envelope with $200 cash in it, and says, "This is this is just from my little church family that he's a pastor over. They'd never even met me. This is from them." I'm like, oh my gosh, it was just overwhelming. I mean,
and I'm gonna ask, because for me, I've realized it's not the amount that makes me believe.
Mm-hmm. But isn't it weird that the amounts were the same for us?
Right, no,
200 in groceries, 200 in cash.
But it's honestly, it's the fact that the timing.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's almost like he waits until like the last minute where you're like, okay.
Yeah.
Because I mean, when you're okay but you're not great, you're like, all right, it's fine.
Yeah.
I'll figure it out. Like I will figure it out.
Yeah.
There's a moment though when you're like, man, this is too much. This is too.
Yeah, it's the peak point of your potential gratitude.
No, absolutely. We're like, man, you give me 5 cents. I'm like, oh my God. I didn't have, like, you feel that gratitude because you understand that it's not coming from something that you did.
Right. Okay, an analogy just popped into my head. Sure. So, the way we build muscle, it's the last few reps that you don't think you can do that are really the most beneficial to your muscle growth. Yep. It sounds like it's the same with faith growth. I mean, it's like, if until you're at the point where I don't think I can do it, I mean, that's the point where you get the most growth.
I couldn't agree more, and I think that when we use the word faith, especially in like the Christian context, it feels like, to me, for a really long time, it was like fairy dust and rainbows and unicorns. It didn't feel like this hard slog like desperation.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it just, I've learned that faith is not something that is like mushy gushy or what. Faith is hard won because you're gonna have to go through some stuff, like you said, to develop that muscle of really believing when things around you just don't seem that way, that something is what it doesn't seem, which is what faith is. Right. It is not something that is, it's not magic. You don't, a wand or whatever. There's stuff that has to happen. Faith is, I remember, I told you we like quotes. There's a pastor that talks about to never trust untested faith.
That's good. Yeah. Because you don't know if it's going to stand up or if the faith's even real if there's never been a test of it, right? Because you could say you have faith, but if you never really had to use it, then
absolutely.
How do you know you really got it?
And I think a lot of times when we hear it in the church sermons and whatever, it sounds very, again, far away, not really whatever, until you have nothing else but faith left.
Just like you said, the pandemic saved you. I think that my meltdown in my valley saved me because I had ankle deep faith, until I was 41 years old, until I had that meltdown. And then, I was never super wealthy, but I was very comfortable for many years. But what came to mind was that, it's harder for a rich man to get into heaven than for a camel to pass the eye of the needle. And I heard this in a sermon somewhere, so I'm quoting, that a rich man can write a check to solve their problems. They don't have to ask for God's help. And if you never have to ask for God's help, then what kind of relationship do you really have? You know? And that was me. I did. I said, hey, God, I love you. You're all powerful. You love your son. But, I'm fine. Go help me. You can go help somebody else,
That's the false sense of security that we have in self. And sometimes it's not even just in money, right? There's a certain level of control that we like to have over our lives. It goes back to this perfectionist thing. But I also think it's a society thing where we are taught, we're taught to be individuals and individualistic and pull yourself up by your bootstraps and all these kinds of ways that does not breed dependence on anything, much less something you can't see physically or touch physically. It is difficult, right? This is why faith is it's countercultural. Because culture says, well, you can do whatever you want to do. Put your mind to it. You can put your mind to it. But if God is not in that, if that's not His will for you, try all you will. It will never give you the peace that you think it will. You can get wealthy. Tons of people that get wealthy without God. But for me and what I've seen, whether I was pity broke or when I was comfortable, the peace did not depend on what was in my bank account.
And the other side of the coin there is that there are also wealthy people who have a wonderful relationship with God. They give, they're generous.
For sure.
Apparently, I wasn't one of them. It's like I wasn't able to be financially well off, and I guess and stop relying on money to save me. Where some people can. Some people, they can have all the money, but they're very generous with it, and they might even give a giant gift that is uncomfortable even for them, but they do it. So those are the ones that He can trust to be good stewards of wealth. And I'm hoping that I've become that person now. I don't know yet because I don't have a ton of money yet, but
no, same. And that's also biblical. The idea of I'm going to give you a little bit. If I trust you with that, then okay. But we're not going to give you the entire. And I can't trust you with this, with a little. And that's, to me, the biggest part as I'm growing this business is to remember what's at the core of why I'm doing this. money's nice and it's great and it's whatever. At the core of this is I genuinely care about people.
Mm-hmm.
I genuinely care about people. I've seen the smiles on people's faces when they see their new website, or they're seeing, oh my God, this many people are visiting this. Or we posted something and within a few hours, like we got like 5 sales from just that one post that we tagged a product, and they're like over the moon with it. Like I love seeing those, those results and people, growing their business and being excited about their vision that they're growing. It's something that I'm motivated by every single day. And I think at the end of all of this, the impact that I'm after is to be authentically me while also doing what I love to do. I'm still growing into who that authentic version of me is. And I'm still finding, even as I'm owning this business, what I love to do, right? Because I started off as a graphic designer, did that for many years, and it's just kind of rolled into different things now. And I know maybe in a year or two, we'll be talking again, and you're like, so what are you doing? I'm like, well, I own it. You're like, oh, that's different.
Yeah. No, I'd love to have you on again later and see where your journey's taken you.
Oh, well, I was just talking about conversation, but I would love to come back. Oh, yeah, of course, for sure. But yeah, it sounds like, and it's not hard to connect as humans in this piece, because we all have that story. Different pieces of it, whatever. It's a story of, man, I was in this place of, whether it's didn't know who I was, or I got lost in a situation, or so overwhelmed that I lost who I was. And there's grace in that entire process, because for the most part, most people, whether it's on their deathbed or decades before, where they can shift and live a life that they want to, we all realize it at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, there needs to be a shift. I'm just happy that I experienced it in my late 20s, early 30s, because now, prayerfully, like, I can live out the other half of my life the way that I feel like God
you got your wake-up call 10 years earlier than I did, so that's great. An extra 10 years for you to do what you're supposed to be doing.
So, I mean, I'm excited, and as much as it's a tough journey, man, we glorify and gloss over entrepreneurship, but it's not for the weak.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't. I have no words.
Yeah, that's a good place to wrap it up. Yeah. I mean, that's true. I mean, I think it's a wonderful journey. I mean, I've done it multiple times. In fact, I say sometimes that, like, I've had so many side gigs and side projects and websites and domain names registered, and over the last 20 years that I forget what point it was, but it was after I quit my job, because after I quit my job, that I leaned into the entrepreneurship, trying to say, okay, well, if I can't handle corporate politics, maybe I can make, if I spend full time on the entrepreneurship stuff, then maybe that'll work. But I still wasn't in a good mental place for that. But I ended up, because of my big sister, going into teaching and loving it, and impacting young kids' lives is what I'm passionate about.
Yeah.
And I just spent so many years just chasing after money that I always thought working in your passion area was like icing on the cake, but it really is the cake. I mean, if you want to be happy, you can't be miserable 9 to 5 and then just be happy for the weekend.
Yeah. I think we lie to ourselves, or society tells us the lie, and we believe it for a long time, that you can't make not only a living, but the money that you're thinking that you want to make, you can't do what you really want to do and what you're passionate about and make that.
Right.
That is the lie.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
unless you're a doctor, a lawyer, and you're passionate about that stuff, okay, cool. Yeah. But if you're creative and you're passionate about that, no one's going to understand that. You're gonna sound crazy.
I guarantee you there's a ton of doctors and lawyers out there that are not passionate about it, and they just went into it for money.
Exactly.
And they're not happy.
And trust me, majority of those people are going to switch. They're going to especially after the pandemic. Because I have a few friends who were in the hospitals, and they were like, no mas. I'm done. No more. I'm transitioning to whether it's like, you know, like a primary care kind of setting or tech or something else, you know, within the medical field. So it is, I do think, to your point, like, you're doing what you love to do and the money will come. That's how I view the rest of my life. I'm not going to chase anything other than what I feel like God is calling me to do, because I've realized, and through all of it, He provides. And if He's doing it that now, and I'm just starting, imagine if I just leaned into this thing 5 years, 10 years from now. So I pray the same thing for you as you're going through your journey. We have a lot in common with a love for education and with our backgrounds in marketing and perfectionism and having the box that we've had to smash open just to feel like ourselves. Like, I see it, and maybe that's what you saw when we were talking.
Which is what made me invite you. I have, when I invite somebody, I don't know exactly why I'm inviting them.
Right.
It's just sort of a spark. The way we converse, you know, at the networking event that we both attend, it's like, okay, we're having a smart conversation. It's fun. It's energetic. This is podcast worthy. You know, it's basically all I think about. I don't like go too deep. Oh, we're both in marketing, or anything like that.
Of course.
But I was right. We had a great time here.
Very true. This was good.
So it's been a really good time. Let everybody out there know how they can get a hold of you for your creative services or anything else.
So I'll start off with the website. It's www. I don't know if anyone says that anymore, but I did. The letter C, MOORE Creatives, cmorecreatives.com. And you can find me on social media at Carrolee Moore, CARROLEE MOORE. And that's on all platforms, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. And I think that's pretty much it. If you want to learn more about, you know, the other places that have been featured and what we've been up to, it's www.cmorecreatives.com/links, and there's a bunch of different like cool things on there for folks who are in business, as well as if you just enjoy reading, you know, stories about awesome businesses that are trying to change their communities. So.
Right, and just to clarify, you're in Dallas, but you can have creative clients all over the world, right? And I do.
Not world yet. I love that.
Well, you could, you could though, right? I mean, it's all digital and...
Yeah, I was going to say, but I'm bi-coastal now with my clients because I have clients that are still in Massachusetts and obviously here in Dallas and some in California. But I absolutely want to branch out, you know, especially claiming it globally.
I mean, so if somebody's watching or listening from the UK right now and they want to hire you, they can, right?
Absolutely. I would love to. My ultimate goal is to travel to work with my clients. So that would be, I mean, claiming that. We're claiming that. But thank you. Thank you for all of this.
Appreciate it. You're welcome. Yeah, thanks for coming. It's been a great time, and we'll see you on your next visit here.
Awesome. Thank you.
That is all we have for you today. Whenever you feel lost, we'll be here to show you the way. Big thank you to Rockstars of Tomorrow in Frisco, Texas for the use of their state-of-the-art recording studio and for supporting our cause. Leave a review on your favorite podcast player or go to thegpsshow.com to be notified of every new episode.